A sport that bridges generations. Live everywhere. Fight gives you instant access to live pay-per-view and free combat sports programs. Check out our combat sports schedule at fight.tv. Fight. Start watching.
Are you looking for a good fight? Check out the Fight pay-per-view schedule. Watch on the biggest screen in the house. What's the fight tonight? MMA, boxing, pro wrestling, live on pay-per-view. Just tap play and pick a screen to watch on. Playback shifts instantly to the screen of your choice. No hardware, no hassle. Download the Fight app and start watching today.
Well, welcome one, welcome all to V3 Fights.
This is exciting. The house is packed.
Well, here we go.
Knockout!
Oh! Pretty electric, man. People are on their feet.
This is your main event. Wow. Let me hear you make some noise.
This is the fight.
Here we go.
Nice takedown. Oh, wow.
Now he's in a full mount. He's raining down elbows. Let's see if they touch gloves. Look at that. Just a nice takedown.
Trying to finish here. Right over.
Ladies and gentlemen, declaring your winner and staying undefeated.
Everyone here just got to witness V3 history.
I'm booking a private jet to Tuscany. You thought of me? Huh? I really need to get there fast. Who the fuck you think you're talking to? Shut up, little boy. I'm talking to Fredo. Un poco di rispetto. Fredo. Sorry, Al. There was someone disturbing us. So I was telling you about Airwolf Jet Services. They're friends of ours. The best. Amazing service. You should check them out now. www.airwolfjetservices.com.
This is Chris Allen of the MMA Fight Bible and John Boy McElroy of Martial Arts Chat Podcast with your weekly MMA Power Hour news update. In the MMA news this week, champion Josh Barnett is now a Bellator MMA fighter, although the news actually broke on April Fool's Day, but it is indeed factual. Bellator president Scott Coker even has an opponent in mind for the heavyweight legend's debut. Coker first announced that the reigning Bellator light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Ryan Bader will defend his heavyweight belt against Czech Congo before returning to the light heavyweight division. He then added that Josh Barnett is likely to get an immediate title shot against the winner of Bader versus Congo. Barnett has not competed in MMA since September of 2016 after he defeated Andrei Arlovsky by submission, and this victory was preceded by a submission loss to Big Ben Rothwell and a dominant defeat of Roy Nelson, who also currently calls Bellator home. TJ Dillashaw has accepted a 2-year suspension from USADA after failing a test for a prohibited substance, the organisation announced on Tuesday. This comes 2 weeks after Dillashaw himself declared that USADA had discovered an adverse finding and that he would be vacating the UFC Bantamweight Championship. Per the release, Dillashaw has tested positive for EPO, a result that was derived from a urine sample taken back on the 18th of January 2019, a day prior to his failed bid to drop down a weight class and take the £125 from Henry Cejudo. EPO, a synthetic hormone used to stimulate the body's production of red blood cells, is thereby increasing the oxygen transported around the body, and it is, like we said, a prohibited substance by USADA. Dillashaw's sanction began on that date, and it means that the 33-year-old will be ineligible to fight until the 18th of January 2021. Cormier versus Lesnar for the heavyweight title looks all set for the summer. That's according to some rumours and some unconfirmed reports by UFC President Dana White. It's worth noting that Lesnar's return to the UFC has not been made official, and it's not the first time we've seen rumours, let's be honest. They sort of come and go and fizzle out and whatever else. But Lesnar now relinquishing the WWE title at WrestleMania has sort of paved the way here, and the former UFC champion himself remains one of combat sport's well-known names. Historically, he's been a top draw in the organisation, every organisation he's worked for, despite not fighting in the UFC since the decision win over Mark Hunt July 2016. Cormier has said he has no idea how close Lesnar's fight is actually to happen, but reiterated that's exactly what he wants. He said, "It's the fight I want. I think everybody wants to fight Brock. We all want to fight Brock, so that's the fight. That's the fight. It needs to happen. He's a former champ, an All-American in college. The guy is very, very deserving of the fight, and he's going to get it, hopefully. We'll see."
UK's own Ross the Real Deal Pearson last Monday put on his Instagram that he was retiring from the sport of mixed martial arts. Ross the Real Deal Pearson joined the UFC back in 2009, where he became the winner of the Ultimate Fighter season. After winning the Ultimate Fighter, Ross Pearson had a couple of wins under his belt where unfortunately he started to find himself coming across a bit of a bumpy road on his journey. He would win and lose, win, lose, and when he was winning, he was only winning by decision. He did have a fair few TKOs when he was with the organisation, but unfortunately it did end up on a downward spiral, only winning one in his last 7 fights, and that fight was against Mizuto Hirota by unanimous decision at UFC 221. But don't get me wrong, Ross Pearson has had some fights against some top opposition, such as notable wins over Denis Silva, Junior Assanzao and the recent fighter in the UFC, Paul Felder. But when he has lost, you know, it's always, sometimes, yeah, he has lost by a TKO or a submission, but some of his losses were by very, very close split decisions against some top opposition, such as Edson Barboza, Diego Stanges and Stevie Ray. And you would think someone with a 12-13 record in the UFC, like how they managed to stay on the roster. And as Dana White's always said, he likes a fighter that likes to come and fight, doesn't hold back, and Ross Pearson definitely fits the bill on this one. So Ross Pearson has definitely cemented his place in this division, and he will be remembered as one of UK's best fighters to enter this division, and we in the UK will sadly miss him fighting. But as he said on his Instagram, I'd like to quote, he has stated, "After some long hard talks and careful consideration with my family, friends and team, I've decided it's time to retire as an MMA fighter, and right now I'm keeping my mind open as to what's next for me." He did continue to thank all his teammates, his fans and his coaches, and me personally, I'd like to see him potentially have a go at this new BKFC, Bare Knuckle FC organisation, where I feel a lot of UFC fighters have gone there, and I feel he's at a stage in his career where he may benefit from something like this, seeing as his stand-up was so good against most of the people he faced. And of course, Conor McGregor has made the headlines again, as he does most weeks, well, most days nowadays, to be honest with you. But this time it's for something a bit more positive than a lot of the negative stuff that's been going against him recently. The instance where he smashed a fan's phone out of his hand has actually been dropped. So one less thing for McGregor to worry about, but the case being dropped obviously leads us all but to believe that some sort of out-of-court settlement has more than likely taken place. So McGregor can push this one to the side now and concentrate on other issues he's dealing with, like the alleged sexual assault issue he has, and also a completely other lady who is also claiming to have had an alleged child with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor has a lot to deal with nowadays, especially with getting his head back into the UFC to fight Khabib, where he lost before. He needs to train better and harder than ever and be mentally ready for the tough test that would face him. Last weekend there may have been no UFC on, but there was definitely some fights worth watching. David Feldman's Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship put on their 5th edition of the show. Some big names are now going over this organisation, as I'm sure you've heard in the media. It was headlined by Artem Lobov, a former UFC fighter and training partner of Conor McGregor, and also former UFC fighter Jason Knight, who as well was a good and very solid fighter within his division. So with this fight coming up, it got the attention of a lot more fans around the world to follow this ever-growing popular sport. I know I've spoken about it before, but I really feel the sport is growing, getting some really good fighters in there as well. So the main event, Artem Lobov versus Jason Knight. What a brutal, bloody war this really was, going the full 5 rounds and both fighters not looking so pretty by the end of it. Artem Lobov obviously did just enough to gain the win by decision over Jason Knight, but both fighters in my eyes won that fight, as they both went to war, they both showed true heart and just did not stop going at each other. In the co-main event, I can't forget that former veteran UFC fighter Chris the Crippler Lieben took on Justin Baseman, and as the Crippler likes to do best, went in there and within the first round, actually within the first minute, he devastated Justin Baseman with brutal punches and uppercuts and dropping him, winning the fight by TKO. So it's just showing that it doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been out of the cage, how long you've not been in the UFC, it is still possible for you to come through and have these sort of fights and prove you still have what it takes to stand in there toe-to-toe with some of the best, despite any age you may be. With a win for Artem Lobov, this perfectly sets up a fight between himself and Paulie Malignaggi, as the two have had recent altercations a couple of weeks ago where Paulie slapped Artem Lobov in the face disrespectfully. So the fight has been announced, it'll be happening later this year. Artem Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi. It's going to be a great fight, seeing as Artem wants some redemption for some of the beef that's been going on also between Conor McGregor and Paulie. This should be a good one to look out for.
The refs have called it. This is Chris Allen and John McElroy with your weekly MMA Power Hour news update. Coming up next is another knockout episode of the MMA Power Hour with Colin and Adam. Until next time, we're tapping out.
Macho Man Colin Crandall here with you, along with Rowdy Adam Rorta. Welcome to the MMA Power Hour. That was for our pro wrestling friends. Apparently, we have a bunch jumping in, and some of our best supporters are also pro wrestling fans. So, can you feel the power? Had to throw that in there. Welcome, welcome. We got a great show here with you. Speaking of Rowdy Adam Rorta, jump on in here. Dr. Adam Lion Fist Rorta, roar in here. What kind of good lion stuff are you doing this week out in the fields and the swamps and wherever the hell lions hang out?
I was just gonna say, where do they actually hang out?
I don't know.
I'm not an expert on lions, even though my name would suggest otherwise. Dr. Adam Lion Fist.
Probably not swamps. For some reason, I guess it probably isn't swamps. That's more like where hippopotamus.
Well, actually, the more I think about it, yeah, swamps, jungles is kind of what they're known for, and then some desert area. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I'm thinking tigers. Yeah, lions are more of a safari, like out in Sahara and stuff. So, but anyways,
so Swamp Lion, Adam Rorta, what's new? What's good?
Way too much. So we're going to be getting ourselves over into the new studio here in the next couple weeks. Actually, we've got it up and going. Some of you have been following. I've been talking about it for a while, and we actually have stuff getting set up as we speak right now. Been working on sound treatment. Got to get all of the computer and sound gear and video equipment over in the next week or two, and if we go missing all of a sudden for 1 week, I do apologize. We will let you know on our Facebook page. Make sure to follow us there. Also, I want to shout out real quick. You see in the bottom corner over here, let me get my make sure I'm pointing the right direction down here. To crosstrainedmmafighter.com is one place you want to go to get some awesome apparel. You also see right now DigiSouth social media marketing. They are an excellent company for all things social media marketing. Get on over digisouth.co. And then also, last but not least, probably most importantly, is make sure to get on over to combatpress.com, where every fight has a story. I've been using them since Colin brought me back into MMA just to catch up, and boy, is it just wonderful having them as a resource. I mean, every little detail that is pertinent to the actual fights and the fighters is all there. I go to them for all the information I can with MMA.
Absolutely. Their kickboxing ratings are universally embraced as the absolute for the sport of kickboxing. Their MMA ratings are absolutely up there and respected as among the best, and they are a bunch of really good regular guys just like us, and you know, absolutely wanting to make sure that they produce the greatest quality information and entertainment and coverage for the combat sports industry, mostly MMA, but also kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. So absolutely great. Combatpress.com. Every fight has a story. So, Doc, I think we still have about 5 minutes or so.
We still have 5. Real quick before we go in anything, the boys that you just actually heard before us, just the audio only and some pictures of them up on the screen, you got John McElroy and Chris Allen. John with Martial Arts Chat Podcast. I wanted to go ahead and bring it up. He has been doing this for 4 years now, and I think today is their anniversary, or this Sunday. Either way, get on over on Sunday to their Facebook page, check them out. They're going to have a nice Q&A for everybody, and I may even be a guest. I don't know. We'll see if my schedule allows for it. If not, we'll see what we can do to get Colin over there. One of us two may or may not be there, but we're going to see what we can do. They've been doing it for four years. They're having giveaways. Just to say thanks to everybody, and I wanted to make sure everybody does get on over to their Facebook page for Martial Arts Chat Podcast, and just check them out, give them a like, see what they got going on there. A lot of great stuff as well, just like Combat Press, but more of an opinion-based side of things, and I really recommend at least giving the page a like and then checking them out on Sunday when I may or may not be on there. If not, Colin may or may not be.
Absolutely. Martial Arts Chat Podcast. What a rush, as the Road Warriors used to say. More wrestling. Got to throw it in what's going on. Want to thank also Chris Dapo Allen. Chris Allen, awesome. He may not have 4 years in, but MMA Fight Bible is absolutely on the up and up, and it's coming up. So our great UK team, John McElroy from Scotland and Chris Allen from England. Thank you, mates, very much. All respect and appreciation to you. Really love what you guys do, and so glad to have you part of the team. So without further ado, we have the great doctor supervising the boards today, and while he's working on that, in the meantime, I'm going to say what a card we have coming up. Who is not going to be able to make it to the event along with me, unfortunately, but we're going to watch it for sure, and it's going to be amazing. You know, I'm going to tell you this. I think that these fights are going to all be exciting. Don't you hate once in a while, though, when you have a lot of great fights and there's an incredible build-up and mostly the card is a snoozer, you know? I sure hope that won't happen. I don't think it's going to happen here. I think there's some really interesting matchups and a lot of fighters that are young but also experienced that are really going to go for it. I don't think you're going to see the people choking, the adrenaline dumps, or the people, you know, losing their reflexes in the last part of their career. I think you got some really action fighters near or in their prime, if not just past or just before. So a lot of great stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. 2 interim title fights on the same card. You ever seen that before, Doc? I think this may be a first. I think he's taking care of something else, so I'll answer for him. No, I think that may be the first, Colin. Yeah, I think so too, Adam. I don't think I've seen 2 interim titles before this. Yeah, no, I really don't recall that I have, Colin. I agree, Adam. So I think that I think that, well, Dr. Adam Rorter and I, our voices sound very similar, feel that this is a first for 2 interim title fights on the same card. and it's going to be interesting to see. So what do you guys think? If you want to throw in some predictions in those fights, Kelvin Gastelum against the last style bender, Israel Adesanya, and then we have possibly the most anticipated fight in many, many years. Max Blessed Holloway, the featherweight champion, going up to lightweight to face Dustin Poirier for the second time in 7 years to see who will be the interim lightweight UFC champion of the world. Dustin Poirier having beaten Max Holloway 7 years ago in Max's first fight in the UFC at 20 years old. Wow. Dustin Poirier already having been a standout in the WEC, and I think already having won all of his fights in the UFC. You bring a 20-year-old in a first fight to fight him. Not a great matchup for any 20-year-old, but Max did well, and he's coming back here to see if he can do even better. Dr.
I have to make a note that was hilarious. I got up and Colin didn't see me out of his peripheral that I actually got up. I had to go handle some technical stuff here, but yeah, that was pretty good.
You like that? I was doing both me and you, right? I figure if you can't talk, I can speak for you. I hope I did well. Did I represent you? Right?
I mean, you sounded just like me. Not at all, but no, anyways, that was great. I'm actually going to go ahead and let's do a Skype dance here in a couple seconds. Just go straight into it, but yeah, Poirier is an exciting matchup coming up here.
Poirier Holloway, wow.
I mean, that's just huge. That's one of the bigger fights that we've seen in a while. And now we've been full of super fights, but this is probably one of the ones that me sitting back and for years being a casual and then just jumping back in, this is like, this is up there.
Yeah.
This is DC Jones level. This is McGregor and Khabib level if they were to do a rematch. This is kind of like that, and I'm super stoked.
Yeah, me too. And a matchup where the guys are going to be literally beating the crap out of each other, this is that matchup. There's no way it's not going to be, unless one guy comes in severely injured, which I don't think is the case. They're both looking good. All fighters are fighting with some injuries, but I think they're going to really take it to each other. Skype Dance City.
Might want to let him know, Colin.
Let's see. See if we can let our first guest know that we are contacting him and not having luck here. Let me see.
It does happen.
Hey, what's happening, Alan? We're trying to Skype call you here for the interview. Are you around? Question mark.
Let's see if he can give us a call.
Let's see. All right.
And then, yeah, listen, the Poirier Holloway fight is just I don't know. Who do you think is going to take that one? Just in a quick nutshell.
Are you asking me or the audience?
Well, both. What everybody out there tuning in, let us know in the comments who you think is going to take this and why. Give us a nice little breakdown. I'd love your guys' insights.
Love to hear it. Yeah.
If you want it to be a few words, you want it to be a nice long breakdown. Hey, we're actually looking for people to do this for us on the regular, anyways.
Yeah. Show us your skills at breaking down fights, and you possibly could be part of the MMA Power Hour team. But in the meantime, we'd love to have your input, even if you don't need to be or want to be part of the team. Love to hear how you think that fight unfolds. Adam, I'm thinking that we are looking at one of the best fights in years. I feel that the underdog Poirier is going to take this. What's your thought, may I ask?
That's my exact thought. That's my exact thought. Now, you hear me a lot going for the underdogs, and I'm a guy that loves rooting for the underdogs, but I'm going to say in this one, it is one of the few, kind of like I was saying with Amanda, that this is really in the favor of the underdog for somebody that watches from the inside, I guess. An outsider would probably assume otherwise, and the stats say otherwise. But really, I'm favoring Poirier. In this
Sounds good. Now, our next guest is ready. Sorry to interrupt you, but if you want to reach out to Alan again. Yeah, and it could go either way. Both guys are so good. I just thought it would be an even money fight. I thought it'd be one of those battles where the odds were dead even, but instead they've got Max Holloway almost 2-1 favorite. Let's see here. Skype dance without sound? Is there?
No Skype dance. We can just keep rolling.
We'll just keep rolling. So it's going to be amazing. That fight could go either way. It really could. Tell him what you'll want. Tell him what you feel, Johnny.
There he is.
Alan, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, man? I got you.
Very good. Awesome. We got you on the screen right there, ladies and gentlemen. So happy to have this next guest on the show. He is a UFC welterweight contender, one of the most popular out there. Great guy, Mr. Alan Jouban. Officially welcome to the show. Alan, you are fighting in 3 days, man. First, I want to thank you so much for joining us here. How is everything over there in Atlanta, Georgia?
It's good, man. Atlanta's actually pretty crazy, but pretty dope. I'm impressed with it. I'd never been here before, and I'm from the South, obviously from Louisiana, but I'd never traveled to Atlanta, and I can't tell you, man, how impressed I am. It's a big, beautiful city with lots of everything, man. Pubs, bars, restaurants, just beautiful bike paths and everything. We went and drove one of those bird scooters about 15, 20 miles today throughout the city, me and my team. And it was great, man. It's fun to be back in fight week and good to be in a good place. By the way, do you guys see me or not? I can't see you guys, but I don't know if this is visual or audio only?
Yeah, no, actually, we see you clearly. Sorry to throw you, but yeah, we have a multiple camera set up here, so you won't be able to see us. But as long as you can stay in the screen as you're doing, we're all good.
All good.
Yeah, absolutely. Atlanta, Georgia, I remember that. It really is. Atlanta, Georgia, I think, is one of the best livable big cities in the South. I think it's known as that. And absolutely, you're not the first person that said a lot of great things about it. So speaking of which, the fact that you're from Louisiana, are a bunch of your people going to make the ride? I imagine you're going to have a great kind of a hometown or a home field advantage, so to speak, to an extent, or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I imagine so. I don't know how many people that I'm personally close to that are coming up, other than my immediate family and whatnot. But just the draw of being from Louisiana, also with Dustin Poirier being the headliner and being from Lafayette as well. I think there should be a very good turnout of people at least from the South, if not from Lafayette.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it. So Dwight Grant, what do you know about this guy? I think he's coming off Dana White's Contender Series, or he's had one win or something. Tell us a little bit about him and what kind of challenges he presents.
Yeah, he had a good win on the Contender. He's had 2 fights in the UFC since then, had a big knockout victory in his last bout, maybe about 6 weeks ago, not that long ago. And he looked good in it, so he proved himself with that victory and wanting to get back in the octagon soon, that he was a guy that the UFC can kind of throw out there. And I think that's kind of how this fight came about. But yeah, he looked pretty good on the show. He's got some knockout power. He's got long arms, and he seems to be pretty mobile. And that's what kind of jumps off the page for me. Anything can happen in there. I got to stay out of danger with him and try not to get caught with one of those big punches. But I feel like I'm going to be, a little too seasoned for him. I feel like, I've got that experience, been in there for a while, been striking for a while. I dissect striking as a coach. I look at things from every angle. And anything can happen tonight of a fight. But as long as I stay in the high percentages of what I do well and out of danger, I see it being myself being a little bit too much for him on Saturday.
I agree. I think so as well. One of the things I know personally is that you learn when you teach, and you're out there so much. I was mentioning to you the other day that the last couple places that I've been covering a show and a fight for MMA Power Hour has been, okay, let me start there, has been a situation where I've seen you both times helping out a friend or a student, and that was Lion Fight as well as Bellator. And so you're really out there helping people, and it helps, doesn't it? A lot of things that you see when you're not fighting can be really helpful to you when you're fighting, when you're watching or supporting your friends, can it?
Yeah, it's kind of like also doing the analyst type gig. When you analyze fights, you look at it from an outside perspective, and you take both fighters and think, what could each of fighter done better, and how would they change it? How could they better their game, or what should they have done better next time? And you have to analyze yourself in the same way. You can't look at yourself and say, this is who I am, I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
You have to look at yourself and say, what can I do to become a better fighter using the gifts and the assets that I have? And so I try to do that. I try to look at myself objectively and grade myself and things of that sort. But yeah, tremendously, that the coaching, the cornering, the gigs as an analyst, all that has definitely helped me look at fighting from a different point of view. I do a lot by numbers, man. I love the numbers, and when I get things that talk about MMA by the numbers, I think is the name of the account, and they did something, and it showed me in 4 different categories in UFC for welterweights of all time when it comes to significant strikes per minute, striking differential amongst opponents, knockdowns, knockouts in the welterweight division, and I'm in the top 5, top 10 categories in all of those, and things like that. is what motivates me, because I'm thinking, you know what? I keep doing what I'm doing. Whatever recipe, whatever formula I'm using is working. Now let me better that. Let me up these numbers. If I'm doing 80% of striking, let me get to 85% of striking. It's only going to increase my percentages of winning. It's only going to increase my percentages of breaking records. And so I like to kind of dissect the game in that way, because it's a recipe for success.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you're doing a great job at it. Got a funny question for you. So many of us that are not professional fighters but are big fight fans or train jiu-jitsu on the side or train Muay Thai or wrestlers find that when we have extra fights that are on in a week, or if we're going to go to events with our friends, frequently we get backlash from girlfriends if it's more than usual, right? Question for you. When you're going to go corner some of your students or some of your friends, do you get the extra respect because you are doing it for a living, or is your wife also saying, no, come on, you're not going out again to fights? Tell me you're not. Please tell me you're not. Or does she cut you slack? How does that work?
Do I get the backlash from the family, from the wife? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm fortunate, man. Like I was thinking about that today. Like how fortunate. When I go in these trips, I miss my family, and I think about how fortunate I am and how much I miss them. And man, my wife allows me to do so much, with my crazy schedule during the day. And then if I'm not at a fight cornering or teaching every weekend, then I'm at home watching the UFC fights every single weekend. I'm watching that 8 hours of TV. My son's there joining me. She's cool with it. Then I go to the fights every week, and she understands. I try not to travel too much unless it's for me. I have to be selfish in some regard. If I got a big fight or I got something coming up, then we're all in. But if it's somebody else, I'm like, yo, can you come and corner me or go out of town with me for a couple weeks for a training session or this or that for a camp? I usually push back, because I'm like, look, I can't leave my family for certain reasons. I already have so much going on. I'm not willing to leave my family and be far away. But if I could do something for one night and go and help a teammate or a friend out in corner, then I'm usually all about doing that.
Very cool. It's a good thing, and that support means a lot to people, man. And I think that's one of the great things about our MMA community is a lot of people look out for each other.
Yeah, I agree.
So how's things going with your show? You're still doing the podcast with Karen Bryant, or is that not happening?
Yeah, no, it's still going good. Me and Karen Bryant are rocking and rolling. It's funny, for some reason, I feel like every interview that I've done this fight week, they've asked us about the podcast. So either it's doing well, or they somehow, a lot of people just became aware of it. I know you are already aware of it, but it's doing well. Me and Karen are doing the show, and I've also been doing my own thing called Unguarded, which is a YouTube thing that I put on YouTube, just kind of breaking down. I'm in my car so much. I'm in my car like 3 hours a day driving to and from gyms, and so when I have stuff that's on my mind, if it's a fight that just happened or a technique or a move that I want to break down and it's just in my head, I said, you know what, let me just put this on tape, man. If this could benefit somebody or break something down and I enjoy doing it, then let me do it. So I started the show Unguarded, and I try to put those out every Monday as well.
That sounds very cool. So you guys look out for Unguarded on YouTube. Is that just an Alan Joban channel, or is there a different?
Absolutely. It's on my channel. Just the playlist is Unguarded.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the welterweight division here. What did you think? And I'm really anxious to hear your opinion. How did you feel? What did you think about the result of that Anthony Pettis and Wonder Boy fight?
Yeah, shocking, man. Very shocking. When I was watching that fight, I was thinking, literally 2 seconds before that, Anthony Pettis took a kick to the belly or something. That's what kind of backed him up on the cage. And before that, he was getting outpointed, outstruck. And I said right before that happened, man, he's got to be thinking, how am I going to keep this pace for 25 minutes? How am I going to continue this? This guy is beating me up. He's attacking the body. He's got 3 more rounds to go. Like that was exhausting. And then boom, out of you blink your eye, and Anthony Pettis bounces off the cage with another innovative type of move and knocks out somebody who's never been knocked out in a bigger weight division. And when that happened, I said Anthony Pettis is a Hall of Famer. Anthony Pettis, he's different.
Yeah.
And something about him. He has that X factor where he thrives and he's creative and he's innovative inside of the octagon, and he's just different, man. He's got those little intangibles that you can't really teach as a fighter, and he's got them.
Absolutely. And a Superman hook. I don't know that we've seen that before. That was interesting, wasn't it?
It was a hook. You're right.
You know what I think on that fight? Tell me if you think I'm wrong. And all respect to Wonder Boy. I think Wonder Boy's a great fighter. I still think Wonder Boy beat Darren Till, and then should have been.
Too.
Yeah, he should have been getting the opportunities that Till got, but didn't. But you know what I think? A friend of mine is a Muay Thai teacher like yourself and stand-up karate. He's got black belts in different styles. One of the things he told me that he thought Wonder Boy has this great style that's really effective if you bull rush him and you rush in and he catches you, or if you just don't really understand the stand-up very much and you can't get him down. But it's so point karate oriented that even when someone comes in, he can't change it up to the Muay Thai, which is what he should be able to do. It's the stand-up the whole time. And it seems like he was busting up Showtime Pettis, and that's if someone doesn't come in and mistime, everything and have Wonder Boy catch them, then if that doesn't happen, and if Wonder Boy's being the aggressor, it looks like he's completely happy to keep on busting someone up and loading up on points. But it doesn't seem to me, and the friend of mine was saying, it doesn't seem to me that finishing someone by you being the aggressor is what Wonder Boy really thinks about. That doesn't seem to be so much in his mind. And I think in that fight, that's what happened. His whole thought was, well, this is great. I'd be ahead 85-10 if this was a point karate fight, and I'm busting this guy up, and he has no business being in here with me. I'm just going to keep on doing it. This fight's going great. Whereas Pettis basically said, this isn't going well. I'm going to see if I can knock this guy's head off. And that was the result. And so I think maybe if there's something that can be learned from Wonder Boy is maybe to have a little bit of the killer instinct a little bit more, to maybe see if he can modify his style. Or do you think he's about your age, I think, which is not old, but is it too late for him to do that? Can we somehow see, like, if you were able to teach Wonder Boy, not that you're trying to criticize him, I know you have all the respect for him, but if you as a Muay Thai teacher could teach him, can someone teach Wonder Boy to change things up a little bit, or do you think that's probably not going to happen?
That's not happening. No, he's not changing his style. And we are old for the game. I mean, I'm 37. I don't know what Wonder Boy is. I think he's like 36. So we can still evolve and get better as athletes. But a guy that's been fighting kickboxing and karate his entire life and had tremendous success in MMA with it, he's not going to change it. He might do subtle changes. He might say, you know what, look, when we see this, we need to blitz more. We need to keep him on the cage rather than allowing him in the open. Small, subtle changes like that. But to drastically change the style and say, look, we need to go for that finish in the first round rather than letting it prolong itself into the later rounds, I don't think we'll see anything drastic out of him. It was really just and I agree with your assessment, though. I agree. Yeah, of course. He's been point fighting his whole life. And he was badly outpointing Pettis. He had Pettis busted up, and he was probably landing 5 strikes for every one that Pettis was landing. Yep. So he was like, you know what? I'm in the driver's seat right here. I'm doing fine. I'm not hurt. Pettis is on a rapid decline. I shouldn't risk anything, and that's what he's been trained to do. So I think that's kind of where it came from. But as I said, I think it was just more on part of Pettis finding an opening at a creative time and capitalizing on it.
Absolutely, and it was tremendous, and a great respect for Pettis, the first MMA fighter to be on the Wheaties box. That only helped our sport, along with helping him. Not to take anything from Pettis, but one thing that I noticed is with this win, it seems like all of a sudden some media are basically saying, okay, now Pettis goes out and wipes out Kamaru Usman and anyone else in the top 5 like in a snap. They didn't say those words, but you almost get the feeling that some media is saying, okay, now Pettis automatically should be top 5 at welterweight, and who can they match him up in the top 5? I personally think Pettis has trouble with anyone, yourself included, anyone in the top 20, even though he beat a guy who was probably ranked number 10. I don't know that this means that all of a sudden Pettis should be top 10 and wipes out any of you guys at welterweight, or do you think I'm wrong?
Yeah, no, it's not happening. I mean, Pettis is great, and I'm a huge fan of Pettis, and as I said, he deserved everything that he earned that night, but he's not coming into the welterweight division. and beating a whole bunch of guys. It was a huge win, and I don't want to discredit that with this, but you know, he's not going to be. You know, he was losing the fight, and he did what he needed to do, and he got the win, which was awesome. But I think he's a lot of trouble with a lot of guys in the welterweight division. I think he can handle himself because his technique and his level is so high, and he has that ability. But he'll get busted up a lot, and there's a lot of guys going to get in trouble, especially when you start getting into those wrestlers in the top 5, top 10 that we have in the welterweight division. All these big body, strong guys that are NCAA wrestlers. Pettis is going to have a tough time staying up with those guys and striking with these guys.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think he's going to try to stay at 170, or do you think that's going to end up being just a one-off?
Who, Pettis?
Yeah.
Will he? No, he's not going to stay, I don't believe. I mean, he's saying it now. Maybe he's flirting with the idea. Hey, who knows? You know, maybe they throw him a fun fight and he takes it. I would too. At this point in his career, he's already, I don't think he's looking for belts, to be honest. I think he's saying, you know what, let me look for fun fights, cool things, Sports Center instant replays and things that give me main events, you know, things of that. He kind of knows that he's done a bunch of great things, and if a fun fight arises at 170, he feels confident in taking it. But is he on a title run in either division? I don't think so.
Yeah. I agree with you. Let me ask you about another thing that some people are talking about still, although it's been a few weeks. I'm sure you saw that altercation after the fights in England with Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards. I'm curious from a fighter and a commentator's opinion like yourself, what you think. And let me tell you the two perspectives that I hear it from. From Jorge Masvidal's perspective, and several fighters I know, he's in the middle of an interview there with Laura Sanko on TV, and all of a sudden this guy says something to him walking by in the middle of his televised interview. He sees the guy and he pretty much says, you know, you want to talk more about this? He walks off toward the guy. Masvidal shows his arms are behind his back, ready to just talk, until he sees that Leon Edwards is coming at him with his hands up. And once he sees Edwards' hands up, he says, well, that's it. This guy's coming at me with his hands up. I got to throw. So does that make sense? Or is it the side of Leon Edwards who felt that he was just ready to talk, and all of a sudden he got punked, which was Masvidal's plan the whole time? I don't think it is, but what do you think how that went down? It's probably not respectful to interrupt someone's televised interview, but does it depend where your head's at? Like, I know they say this isn't fun and games from where Masvidal came up fighting guys in the backyard, but what do you think? Is that something that was all right for Masvidal, or was that something just, you know, that's who he is and not everyone would have done that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't got nothing against Leon Edwards. I think that he kind of was just running his mouth a little bit at the wrong time in the wrong place, and Masvidal was already a little bit heated, and he was in the moment, and, you know, he made a decision. I'm not mad at it, though. I'm nothing against Leon Edwards, but so many guys in the UFC right now are just like, they want to go on Twitter and they want to say all this stuff and they want to get headlines and they want to be so cute and say all these funny things and be witty. And it's just freaking annoying to me. I mean, to be honest, it's like, so I like this, man. I like when Usman confronted Colby Covington. I like when Usman confronted the curly hair guy, Ben Askren.
Yeah, Askren.
And he was like, you know, I need that same energy, because Ben Askren was running his mouth on Twitter. Usman confronts him in person, and Ben Askren went quiet. And so these kind of things have been kind of annoying me. How everybody's like trying to be the cute guy on Twitter, trying to be the Chael Sonnen, and everything is all methodically thought out, and it's kind of annoying. So I don't mind somebody kind of stepping up and saying, look, we're not going to have that cute talk with me. And honestly, like I said, nothing against Leon Edwards. This is just what's happening in the world of MMA. I think it got Masvidal a lot of fans, a lot of respect for kind of like shutting people up that talk too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it got him a fight with Ben Askren. That should be an interesting one. Any opinion on how that one goes down?
I don't know, man. I mean, you could see Ben Askren doing what he does so well, but at the same time, it's a tough fight because Masvidal's so good everywhere.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun to watch.
What did you think of that finish of Robbie Lawler? Was that controversial in your opinion, or did it make sense that the referee stopped that fight with that bulldog choke?
It made sense, but I don't know if it made sense, but it was kind of inevitable in my mind. Like, he wasn't really getting out. only Robbie knows how tight it was. Did Ben Askren let off with the choke a little bit or whatnot? But at the end of the day, I think it should have deserved the immediate rematch. I mean, he comes out there and lights Ben Askren up, throws him over his head. Ben Askren catches him in a choke, and then it's a controversial finish. He wasn't even out. It's like, okay, so let's run it back. Ben didn't want any part of that, obviously. But I think it was deserving of a rematch.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that there are very few rematches in the UFC?
Yeah. Yeah, they don't like to do rematches unless it's for a title, which I get. People don't want to see the same thing twice, but I think that was one that people would have wanted to see, obviously.
I think so too, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but my feeling is there should be a lot more rematches. I'm an old-time boxing fan, even before MMA, and I was a fan of MMA, as I think you might remember from the very first broadcast that I had a copy of the press kit for. I like MMA a lot better than boxing, but one of the things that in boxing that they do is if someone is a high-ranked fighter or a champion, they will usually get a chance to run it back. And UFC, like you were saying, seems to have the attitude that no one wants to see the same fight twice. I don't know. To me, that's a problem. I would rather not cater to the 19-year-old fan that doesn't want to see the same fight twice, and cater to the fan that's a little older that is a real longtime fan of the sport, that knows that if someone, barely lost or lost in a somewhat controversial way, or was even a champion, that they would get a chance to run it back. They're pretty much saying that Woodley's not going to get a chance to run it back even. And, I don't know. I think that's something that I'd like to see different as far as rematches being given if merited, or if someone was a high-level fighter in a fight that was really close, or a champion. Do you have any feelings one way or the other, or either way is good for you?
I think I lost you for a second. Yeah, I'm not mad at not doing too many rematches, because honestly, for me, it's like once I fight somebody, I'm done with it. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to go on to the next guy. I mean, obviously, I'm saying the Ben Askren fight deserves a rematch, but that was completely different. It was a one-sided fight with a controversial comeback finish that people wanted to, hey, let these guys continue fighting. So it deserved it. But if it's just a normal victory or finish, I'm okay with it. I don't want to fight any of the guys I've already fought again. I'm kind of I want to move on from that.
Understood. Let me ask you, I know that you're a fan of MMA as well, and I know that anyone that's a training partner of yours, or someone that you teach that you're going to support, if you want to shout out any of your teammates that are fighting coming up at all, feel free to do that. Otherwise, or in addition to that, let me know if there are any exciting fights coming up that you're really looking forward to seeing.
Mine, 236 this Saturday. I got a fight. The entire main card looks dope. I'm a big fan of Max Holloway's, but I have to root for my fellow Lafayette guy, Dustin Poirier, in this one. And I think it would be beautiful if me and Dustin Poirier could both bring home a victory to Lafayette. We're both donating our fight kits from this fight to the Good Fight Foundation, which is Dustin Poirier's foundation, to raise money. What's up, man? Saturday.
That's awesome.
To raise money for building a playground and Lafayette, Louisiana. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can get the victories, sell our fight kits, get a bunch of money, build that playground in one of these kids' names, and make it a great night.
Absolutely. How can people help with that cause? You said there's donations, or is it just both of you giving part of your purse, or can people help with that cause if they want to?
You could go to the Good Fight Foundation, that's the name of it, and donate probably. It's his site. I haven't been on it too much, but for this, after the card, my entire fight kit, everything we had on that night, and same with Dustin Poirier, we're going to be auctioned off, and so we'll have a link to the auction, and you could bid on that, and then the winning bid, who gets it, will donate that towards it as well. But yeah, the Good Fight Foundation, check that out.
Very cool. Are you surprised that Dustin is like a 2-to-1 dog in that fight?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to deny the run that Max has been on, and you can't really say he's going to be undersized, so I see where the odds makers are coming from.
Yeah. Does the fact that Dustin beat him 7 years ago have any bearing on this fight, do you think? Is it in Max's head, or does Max realize he was 20 years old and it was his first UFC fight when that happened?
Yeah, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think for Max's sake, at least, he knows I was a kid. And for Dustin, it might be a bit of comfort knowing I beat him before. He's a better version, but I can beat him again. So I think it plays differently in both guys' heads.
Yeah, I feel this fight is almost going to kind of like be an old school Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier of MMA. Max Holloway, almost like the Diaz brothers, has that relentless style, right, where his volume is so great, his output is so great, his cardio is so great. He's got some snap. He may even have more snap on his punches than the Diaz brothers, but he's a long, lanky guy, not a ton of fast twitch muscles. He's not a big bomber, but you know, it's just so great with his output. Super accurate as well. And then on the flip side, Dustin has got really great boxing technique. I've always been impressed with that. He hits really, really hard. And so I kind of feel it's going to be interesting to see, you know, Max will probably think, okay, if I land 2-1 or 3-1 on Dustin, I'm all good. But would he necessarily be with as hard as Dustin hits? I kind of feel, though, that's what he's thinking. Do you think either of these guys are going to think takedowns right away, or do you think we might be looking at a stand-up war for the whole fight?
I think it's going to be a big stand-up war. If Dustin has opportunity, he will. Dustin's got very good wrestling, and jiu-jitsu is kind of underrated, but he's very good. I've trained with him, and he's able to take me down and hold me down. He's very strong, and that'll be the biggest advantage that he has. But I agree. I think it's going to be a stand-up war, and I think the guy's going to be both pretty busted up at the end of this fight. So it'll be one of those. Hey, I got to run, though. I got to go get my training session in right now.
Absolutely not a problem.
They're waiting on me.
I really appreciate you staying with us this long, man. Much respect to you, Alan Jouban. I'll be cheering for you. Man. You are, I think, the third or the fourth fight, so you're main card on this, right?
Main card, second fight of the night on the main card.
Fantastic. You deserve it. Look forward to seeing you soon. We'll be cheering for you, Alan. Thanks so much again for joining us here.
Thank you, guys. Good night, you guys.
Thanks, brother. You too. Have a great night.
Later, brother.
Later. That was Alan Jouban. Really, really great guy. Really appreciate it. He stayed with us here 3 days out from the fight at the location in Atlanta, Georgia. Super guy, isn't he, Doc?
Absolutely. And, you know, I just enjoy having him on so much that I was actually off on the side. You guys didn't see it. I heard through my peripherals that he needed to go, but I was kind of hoping that we could keep him on as long as we could, and we did. So thank you for staying on as long as you did, Alan. Real quick, for everybody that's tuning in, we could always use all the love in the world on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, everywhere out there in social media land. Go ahead and give us a like, a follow, whatever you can. Give us a comment and share. We appreciate it. Thank you in advance. While we're on the note of social media, we have been utilizing DigiSouth. They're hands down the single best social media marketing company I've ever dealt with, and so good so that I actually have put some of my own money into the company, and I'm a partial owner. But make sure to get out there and connect with them if you're looking for any of the social media marketing. Just hit us up. We're good with content creation. You can hit me up. CrossTrainMMAfighter.com. You can get an awesome t-shirt. I'm not wearing it today. I haven't in the last few weeks because I've been wearing it every other day of the week, and it starts to get pretty musty smelling if I just wear it over and over again.
Not if you wash it, though. If you wash it, they're good. But yeah, thank you, Dr. Adam Roder.
No, it's not the t-shirt that does that.
No, the t-shirt is good smelling and great fitting. But no, I appreciate that. But you're right. He's wearing them a lot, and I appreciate your support a lot. Cross-Train MMA Fighter, DigiSouth. There was an old TV commercial where a guy used to say, I liked it so much, I became part owner of the company. And so that's the story here with great Lion Fist Adam Rorda.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as a great Hulk Hogan would say, well, let me just tell you this, brother. When Adam Rorda talks, people listen. So that's the Hulkster say. Yeah, Hulkster here supports Dr. Adam Rorda and DigiSouth, brother. DigiSouth, check them out.
Well, people only listen to make fun of me, just like you. Everybody joins in on the fun.
Listen to laugh, and me too.
Make more fun of me and maybe vote for me for best looking man.
Yes, sexiest man, People Magazine. Dr. Adam Rorda, I heard, is right now in the lead next to ahead of Adam Levine and a couple other people. So,
well, hey, if you check out our common theme here tonight, we have which company is it that Alan models for?
Alan is a Versace.
Versace, there you go. Versace model. And our next guest coming up here in a little bit is he was voted sexiest man by.
He actually was in a America's Sexiest Bachelor 20 years ago when he was in his late 20s.
So you know what? We've got an ongoing theme here, and maybe we should bring that up with the next guest as well. That,
exactly.
We're going to try to get me nominated. I don't deserve it. I don't think so anyways, but you know what? Hey, if you guys want to vote for me, I'm down for it. It's
vote
funny
for
joke.
Dr. Adam Rorta. Yes, he deserves it. And, we're humble. This may not be the greatest women's eye candy show ever, but at least somewhat. Give us a little bit.
I got the long hair and the funky glasses.
Yes,
so.
And I have the old gray beard, but with our guests, I would say, and Dr. Adam Rorta, we're hoping to try to not look too bad here, not present too many faces for radio, although it is really what's in the heart. One thing you know about Dr. Adam Rorta and I is that it's all about who the person is, and they can be sexy. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the heart is the most important thing. So
absolutely. Real quick, Colin,
yes.
I want to go ahead and bring up a question. And somebody was looking for our opinion on the thoughts of TJ and where he's going. Is he pretty much where's his career setting? I personally feel that this definitely did a lot of damage, but I think he handled it appropriately. And if you want to go in detail more what I'm talking about, I feel like he's going to come back from this just fine, probably stronger and better than Jones did.
Yeah, I think so. This is one of the things that I think is frustrating when you have people running an organization that weren't fighters. I've never been a professional fighter, but I competed. Adam competed. I wasn't dealing really with a lot of weight cutting. Adam was in wrestling. And I feel like asking TJ Dillashaw to fight at 125 pounds was really asking a lot. If they were going to get rid of the flyweight division anyway, why make the bantamweight champion go down? That didn't make any sense to me. Nevertheless, he probably wasn't going to make the weight or be able to maintain his health without use of some sort of substance. It didn't pay off anyway, and he got smashed by Henry Cejudo, probably because even with the help in his system, he was so weakened by the weight cut. It's a tough one. You almost say to yourself, someone loses the big fight anyway and gets smashed and gets skunked early, then there has to be a 2-year suspension. I don't know. I guess it's the principle of the thing.
It's definitely the principle. Me as a competitor in the past, if I didn't make weight, I didn't make weight, and I had to pay the price for it. Was it necessarily healthy for him? No, he shouldn't have taken the fight in the first place. Then he should have said, you know what, Dana, I'm sorry. This is one situation. You're asking me to put my livelihood on the line for the rest of my career. If you're putting it up either way, quite frankly, I'm going to put it out there for everybody to know. And that is how I would handle it. And yeah, we're talking millions of dollars, but sometimes you got to have the courage to step up to the plate and say, listen, and this is with yourself too. You got to have the courage to step up to the plate and say, listen, I'm not going to be able to make this cut and be able to maintain my health. There's just absolutely no way. I'm not going to end up in the hospital with kidney issues, liver issues, whatever it is. There's just no way if I'm not taking a substance. So you can tell me that you're gonna, and I don't know what's going on in the background. Maybe he got somebody to say, okay, well, we'll make sure that you're handled and taken care of with the athletic commission and USADA, but I don't know what happened there, and I will say that TJ should have stepped up to the plate and said, listen, my bottom weight is not 125. That's below my bottom weight. That's 10 pounds below my bottom weight. I shouldn't have gone down this. I should not ever be asked to go down this low.
Good, very good point, and a lot of it I agree with. Let me give you a counterpoint only to a little bit of it. And I want to be measured when I say this. I've been a huge supporter of the UFC, watching them from the beginning. I've also supported and watched Bellator, as many other fans do, and won championship, and I watched Pride, as most fans do. I've also basically been one that also feels that I'd like to see some of the other organizations get bigger. I haven't been one that has been walking around saying UFC sucks, they're shit, their guys running it are shit. I haven't been a guy saying that, but can I give my opinion, and do I do. And here's what I'm going to do. The UFC, as with other big companies as well, even in an office job, there are a lot of bosses where you tell them you absolutely have to have a day off for a friend's wedding, and they'll say, well, you can have as many days off as you want as long as you don't come back, because you're fired if you take the day off. So it's not necessarily that unusual, but that stated, UFC and Dana White have been known to be able to take the position that says, so many people want these opportunities. We're giving you an opportunity. You're telling us you're not sure if you want it? Great. We can move on and give an opportunity to someone that wants it. TJ saying what you said, Dr. Adam Rorta, I respect and could have been good. I don't necessarily think it would have been well received. I think had he said that to Dana, Dana could have looked down, thought about it, and said, well, you know, those words make a lot of sense, but it looks like you're telling me you're not interested in an opportunity that I'm giving you. And if you're not interested in an opportunity I'm giving you, then it may turn out that your bantamweight title is vacant until you figure out that you're interested in opportunities.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. He needed to have the courage to say, well, you know, listen, if that's something that was said, he needed to have the courage to say, listen, I'll let the world know in this case. Like, you cannot expect me to put myself in danger and not, I mean, that's kind of where everything's at is, right, if that's what he's insinuating right now, he really is. And I'm not talking about you. I think you and I are in agreement that that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes here. And I really think that TJ needed to have the gumption and the ability, the backbone to step up to the plate and say, listen, no, this is one time. I can't. I can't. You're asking me to do something that's not just putting my health at risk, but it is putting the entirety of my career at risk. It's not an opportunity. It's really not an opportunity that you're giving me. And so what you're giving me is a hindrance to my health, to my career. No matter how I handle it at this point in time, my career is screwed. Right.
And then and I hear what you're saying, and I'm not arguing that point because I do agree. We're on the same side here. But I do want to say, suppose then Dana says, okay, so then what you're saying is you're not a company man. You're not interested in being a company, because that's all I hear is you saying you're not a company man then. I can't count on you.
I'm still saying the same thing. Absolutely saying the same thing. He needed to have the gumption to be able to handle that situation. And me, if somebody says that, you know what? Fine, adios. I'm going over to one.
I see what you're saying.
Fine, adios. You're the one that's actually breaching our contract, not me.
I see your point.
You're the one that's actually doing this. You're the one that's not coming to the table with the integrity to do this. Now, I don't know if this is what happened, but just discussing this and bringing up that possibility of what's actually going on and some speculation, frankly, that's the way it should have been handled. That there's a lot more integrity behind that than just going ahead and taking a fight that's putting yourself at risk. And the only way that you can maintain your health is through taking the substances that are illegal, according to USADA. Like, you're screwed if you do and screwed if you don't. So what are you going to do? You're going to take control of the situation as like somebody has said before, like a real man. You're going to step up to the plate and you're going to actually handle this at the front.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I understand that. The one thing I will say, you know, that TJ could say is, it's all easy to say, but when you're in the good graces of the UFC, you kind of want to stay there. So I understand it as well. It was a dilemma. Sure, would it have been great had he said, look, I got to put my foot down here. I've done absolutely everything else you need, and you need it. I can't do this. I understand. It's frustrating. It's unfortunate. I think TJ is in his early 30s, almost mid, so 2 years is not a great thing to be off, especially in his lighter weight division. But I think he'll be back, and I think this is forgivable. in as much as he had to go down to a very, very low weight that he didn't look good, probably shouldn't have gone down to, and I would bet you he probably took the minimal amount of help with substances possible, thinking that perhaps maybe it might not even stay in his system, and obviously didn't give him any huge advantage. All of a sudden he wasn't a world beater and he got smashed.
It should have stayed in the system in all technicality. In the front of your mind, at least as an athlete, you're realizing that what you're doing is you're taking a substance that speeds up your metabolism, so it's supposed to push it through your system, all that blah blah blah. You can go to these cannabis stores and buy the same stuff, and that's a problem with half these substances. You actually don't know what's in there, so there's some issues with that. But you know, regardless, TJ, I think he's going to be fine in his career at the end of the day. Yeah. Is he going to have to wait a couple years? Yeah, but that just allows him some time to go ahead and train harder.
Yeah, absolutely so. And what do you think is going to happen, Doc, with this flyweight division? Apparently, Cejudo is set. You know, it's been a crazy day rushing through traffic. Cejudo, I think, has a bantamweight fight set. So. Are they gonna disband flyweight? It almost seems like the anticipation is killing these guys that fight at 125 pounds, where they're not saying.
Well, it seems like every fight that's coming along here at flyweight,
they're not really hardly making any of them though.
Yeah, they're not hardly making any of them, but there's enough of them that you know, they're throwing them on the main cards. They're still keeping them going. Every time I'm looking at tweets, I see another one coming out from another 10, 15 fighters sitting there saying the exact same thing. Are you yanking our chain or what? Like,
right.
I get it.
What's going to happen, do you think? Are they going to pull it or not?
No, I don't think they are. I think they're trying to kind of play it off. And I noticed this. Dana's more or less pulling the no comment card when people are asking him the same thing. He says, I said what I said. And he kind of leaves that at, he doesn't say no comment, but that's what it is. And he just moves on to the next set of questions. Yeah. And I'm thinking what their play is see what they can do to keep it there. First off, it's really one of the more interesting weight classes to watch, just because there's so much speed. Yes. And there's a lot more grappling. Yeah. And high speed grappling. So a lot of people that come from the wrestling world love this weight class. So I think Dana recognizes that, and he wants to keep it there, and they're fighting to keep it alive. They're having some difficulties. So I think he's not trying to completely fully dismiss it yet, but I think they're doing what they can to hang on to it and hope that it saves itself with just number of high caliber fighters that can come in and have people forget about the fact that they announced that it was going to be axed. I mean, really, I think that's the main game plan that they have. Yeah. I think that really is. Is it going to be axed at the end of the day? Absolutely. Do I see them making the effort to keep going with it? Yeah. You see, so your thought is they're going to keep it going for a while, but then at some point they're going to dump it. Yeah, or they're going to have to take a partnership with one of the other leagues that has flyweight.
Which they've never done in 20 years. Well, actually, we can't say that anymore. Now that Zuffa doesn't own it, I guess you could say it's been, 3 years or something for WME. And who knows, maybe they may be willing to partner with someone. It'd be interesting to see. But
that's an interesting subject. You watching Fight Pass, they're taking in all these other organizations now, and I really feel like that's kind of the plan, is for them to be the main umbrella company of all these other smaller promotions, and I really see that kind of coming. So I do see the potential, and I see that kind of being one of my main purposes behind saying that this is going to be drawn out until people just forget that it was supposed to be axed.
Yeah, I hope so, because there's some guys that fight at 125, and that's the best weight for them, and then they're undersized for 35, and I hope they keep the division. What would your guess be happens first? Another women's division, or them bringing in one of the new weight classes? And let me make this more clear for people that don't know. Right now, there's a women's 115, 125, 135, and kind of a fledgling 145 in the UFC. 105 exists. There is an atomweight 105 in Invicta, but UFC has never had it. And then there's also a possibility of a 155-pound division, which would open it up to Kayla Harrison in the PFL. So these would be the two thoughts possibly for the women, Doc. For the men, they're talking about divisions that have never been seen before. Right now, as those of you who don't know, in the men's division in MMA, we have 125 flyweight, 135 bantamweight, 145 featherweight, 155 limit lightweight, 170 limit welterweight, 185 limit middleweight, 205 limit light heavyweight, and up to 265 pounds, 266 for non-title fights, a limit for heavyweight. What they're talking about is getting rid of 70 and bringing in 165, 175, 195, and like a 225 pound cruiserweight, a limit, or maybe calling that heavyweight, and then above 225 would be like a super heavyweight. What comes first, a women's division or a men, and which one, if you had to guess?
Women's for both. The 105 and the 155. I really see there being a very rapidly growing market in the women's MMA world, just being women's MMA and just being so fresh to everybody, but growing so quickly. I really see that coming first. However, I do think the 175 portion, just right there with that weight class, actually is going to be the very first thing. But if I were to throw all of it out there in bigger picture, women's has a lot more of a chance. But I see the all-stars over in men's MMA with UFC pushing real hard for this 175 weight class. So I can see that coming real rapidly. But at the same time, Invicta is more or less a farming league, or farmers league, whatever you want to call it, for the UFC. So 105 makes sense right off the bat. Now 155 for women, I mean, they're having troubles
getting 45 women.
Getting 45 women. So that's tough, but at the same time, the market demand for women's MMA has just grown so rapidly and is really becoming a huge part of the main stage for all MMA. I really just think both weight classes have more of a chance than all the others, except for the 175 weight class over in the men's.
Excellent. And I think 165 and 175 for the men's. I think if they get rid of 170 and then brought in 65 and 75, it would make so many guys' days better and so many people happy. Ben Askren is saying at 65, that would be his. So many people also that are smaller, like Anthony Pettis, would love 65. I'm sure RDA 65, and then some guys that are really small at 85 but can't make 70 would love 75. The women's atom weight, I wouldn't be surprised if they could bring that in. There are some women that are 115 that could make a 105. And then 155 women's, I would like to see it, but I think you might be right for now. Their UFC is feeling that there's hardly any women big enough to make 145. So I doubt they'll be embracing 55 anytime soon, although PFL is.
One thing that comes into question with the UFC is, are they ever going to allow transgendered fighters, which is something that some people are fighting for?
I remember there was that Fallon Fox, who was a very, very tough transgender fighter. There was a lot of controversy. I think she had several wins, and then I think it was Ashley Evans Smith, I think, that beat her. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. I definitely don't have any negative things to say about any lifestyle or gender or anything.
Yeah, no, but are they really going to adopt it and try to promote something with that?
Possibly not. Possibly not. That probably always would be controversial. It's hard to say, but that's something that I guess we'll have to see. And certainly if someone's right is to fight and they are who they are, then it's all about what's in your heart. That's one thing I think all of us feel here on this show.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that come into play with that, as far as chemical balance with testosterone and versus estrogen. Now a lot of them do treatments to make it balance out the other way, but then you still had a head start. There's a whole bunch of debate and argument with it. I really don't see there being too much opportunity inside of transgendered fighters, but hey, it happens. Obviously, we've had one already come about and make an impact in the sport, so we'll see. But the only reason I'm really bringing that up is because if they adopt it and promote it in a certain way where it's not a single division for transgenders, it's men that are heavier set already, making the transition, becoming women and fighting at that heavier weight class at 155. Right. That's why I'm bringing it up, because then it's more likely.
Yeah, I see your point. That would be interesting. Yeah, full of transgender. Interesting, and I will
not
say
necessarily
this.
full of it, but just I think it would be able to open up the weight class a little bit more. It's actually an opportunity more than the opposite. I think if they were to really just grasp onto it and utilize it, which they could, it would be an interesting marketing play. But
yeah, it would, and I would say we may be the only show to have brought that up. So Dr. Adam Rorta, I really appreciate Lion Fist, the fact that you're plugged into modern society and what's out there, and you know, we only judge people by what's in their heart. So, you know, whoever you are, whatever
this wasn't intended to be like some huge controversial social conversation, but I mean, it's just it is actually relevant in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so.
you never know, and it could happen. And if it happens, God bless whoever's in that situation. If someone is a great fighter and an athlete, and things work out, then you know, for you, then we'll support you, whoever you are, as long as you have integrity. That's one thing that I think is important. I think you agree. We bring people on that are respectful, that are fun. Some people use some more salty language than others, but we have people on that are all good, decent people, and there's so many in this world of combat sports, a lot more than some people think who are not familiar with it. Anyway, whenever you're ready to get us going for that next spot, Doc, and in the meantime, I will say that we're really excited to bring this next guest on. In the meantime, amazing fights coming up Saturday. Love for you guys to give me your opinions, any predictions, any breakdowns. If you want to leave some comments, you know, about this upcoming amazing UFC 236 fight. If you're going to Atlanta, you know what I mean? If anyone's going to Atlanta that's a MMA Power Hour fan, maybe you can run into some other MMA Power Hour fans and say hello, hang out, have a beer, have a Coke, have a hot dog or some pretzels or some nachos or whatever. You know, drink one for MMA Power Hour.
And real quick on that, if you want a T-shirt from us, give us a holler real quick. If you pay for overnighting and you're going to the show, we'll go ahead and give you one.
Yes.
Up to 3 people, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
Up to 3 people, and that's on me. We'll send them out. Anybody that wants to buy one, we do have the T-shirts for sale for $29.99
or $27.95, something like that.
Yeah, we'll do it for $27.95 just to make you all feel special.
Exactly. Let us know. Anyway, Dr. Lion.
We're getting them pulled up here in any second, and here we go.
Should we get this rocking? Should we do a Skype dance?
There's your answer.
Hey, Guy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here, man. What's going on?
Excellent. Everything's going good, man. I just want to make sure we can get a good video of you. So if you hit that video button, it looks like a computer monitor or a screen with a line going across it. That would bring you in. You won't be able to see us. You'll see a green screen, but at least we'll see you if you're in the square. Excellent. Very good. Gotcha right there. Appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a proper introduction. This next guest is one of the legends and pioneers in MMA, fighting in the early UFCs, was part of the very first team that wasn't the Gracie family. We're talking about the Lion's Den, and we're talking about Dr. Guy Mezger. Welcome to the show, Guy.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Your first UFC was UFC number 4, wasn't it?
Yeah. I guess time makes you a legend because I don't really get, you know, it's funny they say legend. I'm like going, you know, the problem is with the whole legend bit is, one, I don't think I'm that old of a person.
Right.
And two, legends don't take out the trash. Like my wife so much can take out the trash. I don't think legends should take out the trash.
I hear you. Well, you're a humble guy, and you're you know, in everyone's opinion, but your own a legend. But that's a good thing. I remember when I was young, I was kind of thinking I was a legend of something, and my mom got me a T-shirt that I thought said "Legend in Your Own Time," but it said "Legend in Your Own Mind."
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, you know, but no, that's not you. And you have all the respect from so many of us. And let's go back to the early days. So many people are fans from the beginning, or at least have been fans retroactively, looking back at the early stuff. I mentioned to you I was there, and the fans and listeners of my show know that I had a copy of the press kit of UFC 1 before the first event. I had seen the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu tapes, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in action VHS tapes a couple years before, and so I was very interested and knowledgeable. So as far as someone watching who was a martial artist, I am one of the OGs, but as far as someone who participated in the beginning, you're one of the OGs, and that trumps me. So I have all respect for you. Like I told you when we talked on the phone, when I see you, I feel like I'm in my 20s, because I was when you were fighting, man. So it's a good feeling, you know. Reminds me of a lot of fun times and having some friends over. It was no holds barred fighting. Bring us back then. The first representative, obviously, from your camp to fight was Ken Shamrock in UFC 1 and 2. You were in his corner in both of those fights, were you not?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't? Were you part of the team and just weren't there, or had you not been part of the team yet?
There really wasn't a team back then.
Oh, that's right. When he first, well, yeah, that's right. So obviously, I didn't think about that and put 2 and 2 together, but I guess after he participated in UFC 1 and 2, how shortly thereafter did he form Lions Den? Obviously, it was very soon thereafter, right?
Yeah, well, okay, so basically the deal was that you know, Ken was working for the Pancrase organization,
right?
And they were wanting you know, more American athletes to come, and so you know, Ken, you know, started to you know, but nobody, there wasn't, you know, anybody that was really doing, you know, MMA, you know, because that's really what Pancrase was a, you know. Like Pancrase is a little bit closer to MMA today than No Holds Barred, than the original No Holds Barred is today. You know.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, and so nobody had kick punch wrestling, you know, and submit stuff, right? You know what I mean? And so you know, Ken, in order to get good training partners, had to make his own training partners. And you know, and so that's how it kind of started with a you know, a small group of guys that, you know, had, you know, he worked with a little bit, then he worked with a guy who wrestled, and then he worked with like a judo guy and stuff like that. And that's really how he kind of did it. And then with the idea came where, you know, they wanted to have more Americans, so he put together, you know, he started training guys. Like you know, I was I kind of considered one of the original guys, but I wasn't one of the first guys. You know, originally it was like Vernon and Scott Bezek, and a couple other guys that didn't really pan out, but they were there, and then Frank, and then Jason, and then this guy named Hagar, you know, and you know, and so Jason, you know, he met Ken at the UFC, and that's how you know, and I believe UFC 1 or 2, I forget which one it was, and that's how they. Actually, with UFC 1, they met, and then, you know, later on they you know, started training and together. And then really how I came about doing it was that you know, I agreed to do this fight, you know, and because when I saw UFC 1, and it was interesting because I saw Ken walk out, and I literally told my partner, my you know, well, a couple of my training partners from my kickboxing and boxing days were there, and there was a bunch of other martial arts watching. And I'll be honest, I thought it was really fake. I thought this is pro wrestling gig, right?
Yeah.
And then of course we see you know, Totuli's toes get knocked out. I'm like, holy crap, it's real, you know?
Yep.
And so, you know, but when I saw Ken walk out, I was like, I literally told people, I'm gonna train with this guy, and everyone was like, yeah, whatever. And I just had a feeling. It was weird. I really said, I'm gonna train with him one day. And then I met him at UFC 3 because they flew me in. Okay, so they wanted. You got to remember this. The format really was not athlete against athlete, right?
Right.
It was style against style.
Yes.
You know, that's really what they were pushing, because really what they were pushing was the Gracie agenda.
Yeah.
You know, about jiu-jitsu. And, you know, and so they had, you know, so it was really a different style. So they wanted a kickboxer to fight. And, you know, I was the number 1 rated kickboxer at the time. And so the site promoter for them was a guy named Buddy Albin. Buddy Albin promoted fights that I fought on his cards in like Oklahoma, Mississippi, sometimes Louisiana. And so he had an option to put 2 athletes into the show if he wanted to. So he asked Anthony Macias and me if we do it, and we flipped a coin, Anthony won, so he went in the tournament, and I went into the, I had a single combat match with Jason Farron. But I said, before I actually agreed, I said, man, I want to see this thing live because, it's just, it's pretty insane.
Yep.
And so I went to UFC 3, and it was pretty insane. It was the whole thing was surreal. I mean, it was like, I don't know if you remember the movie Warriors, but it reminded me of the movie Warriors. I swear, with all the different camps acting up and
what was it like? What was it like looking at Emmanuel Yarborough up close?
He's Manny was a sweetheart of a guy. You know what I mean? He was a really good guy. I know he passed away several years back, but he was a sweet man.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. He wasn't a fighter.
No.
I mean, he was a great big man, but he had a big heart.
Yeah.
And a very sweet man. And, yes, he was capable of fighting, but he didn't really have a fighter's heart. He was just really, to be honest, a really sweet man.
Yeah, really nice, easygoing guy. He was a good American sumo. That 6'8", 616 pounds, though, was quite amazing. I still remember the commentary where one of the guys was saying, I think Keith Hackney should get him with low leg kick. This is an iconic match for those of you that haven't seen it from the early days. It wasn't what the early days were all about. There were some great skillful matches and some great back and forth. This was a match with a really huge man who was an American sumo fighter, 6'8", 616 pounds, somewhere probably near the end of his career anyway, having never had any other training, against a tough karate guy. And Keith Hackney was about 5'11", 200 pounds. And I remember the commentator said, I think he should throw low leg kicks. And he repeated it, low leg kicks. And the other guy said, I don't think he can hurt him with a kick. There's too much weight there. And I remember that fight, and I guess you must have been, were you back in the dress? No, so you were at that fight. That was not the fight that you fought at, but were you cage side for that fight when that happened?
No, I mean, I remember the fight, but I wasn't cage side for that one yet.
And I remember when he pushed him out, they didn't have a deadbolt on the door yet. And he pushed Hackney out of the door, and they brought Hackney back in, and then he ended up, getting the best of Yarborough. But yeah, Yarborough, I heard, is a very, very nice man. Keith Hackney was an interesting guy back in the day. Not to segue, but we got a lot of time, and I'm so interested in going over so much of this stuff with you, Guy. Sure. Did you know much about Keith Hackney? What kind of guy was he?
He's another really good guy. Keith, not, sitting down and, becoming blood brothers or anything with them, but he was always a really solid guy. Really what Keith reminded me of was, it's not going to sound like a compliment or anything, but it really is. He reminded me of those old school 1970s karate guys, right?
Yep.
And they didn't have, those guys didn't have a lot of flashy crap. If you watch, especially the movies and stuff when that started becoming popular, if you really look at Bruce Lee stuff, it's not that flashy, right? It's really not.
Yep.
And it's not even technically that good looking. And a lot of these guys, from that era were kind of like that. And Keith reminded me that what they were was very tough men. This is old school karate. Old school karate wasn't really designed to be a sport. That's what ruined karate, to be honest, is this bullshit they call karate today.
Yep.
That makes me want to throw up.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what the rules are for the Olympic karate, but I understand that they're actually pretty good rules, which would be nice.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Keith kind of was like a throwback to those kind of 1970, late 60s, 70 karate fighters who didn't have a huge amount of variety of techniques, but were just hard men, just tough guys.
Yeah.
And we're willing to fight, and Keith's one of those guys. I didn't really see Keith being like tremendously intimidated by anybody, in the game, and he went and did his best against guys, like I said, Keith's one of those guys that was probably a lot, physically tougher than he was skilled.
Yeah.
And he made it work. I mean, here's a guy who, made some, old school stuff work.
Yeah. How about your first opponent, Jason Farron? God bless him. I heard he passed on a while back. Did you ever get to know him as well? That was an amazing fight. Two of you good-looking guys. You had the longer hair. There was a no hair-pulling clause. That was, I think, one of the only times you had your long hair. But that was a really good fight, and it just seemed like your maturity and your calmness and your skill kind of were what won over that fight. Tell us about how that fight looked to you on paper when you first stepped into the cage, how it went down, and then any memories of Jason Farron.
Yeah, okay, so I'll be honest. When I saw the UFC, I knew I could win because, I had a pretty extensive wrestling background. I didn't have a great college career, but I did wrestle in college. And mainly the problem I had in college was the fact that I, managed to get kicked out of college. Not that I didn't have the opportunity, that I couldn't handle the wrestling.
Right.
I just had a hard time, actually going to school, which was kind of the point of college, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I was All-American, and I was on our junior national team and stuff, and so both schoolboy and 18 and under, and so I had a background on that. I was a national level judo player, and I was an all-rated kickboxer, an undefeated boxer, and I had won the World Full Contact Karate Championship twice. And so I had a pretty extensive background in various arts, and I was pretty good at them, each one.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at myself as kind of the quintessential MMA fighter today, because back then there were guys would be like, here's a karate guy, here's a jiu-jitsu guy, here's a wrestler, and they didn't have a variety of skills. Now they all do.
Right, right. You were kind of like a balanced MMA fighter before there really were any. I agree with that. And so you had that confidence. And there you were training with Ken. So before you had the Jason Farron fight, you would train with Ken for what, a few months or what?
No, I trained with Ken for about 10 days.
Oh, 10 days in the Lion's Den, and you had that fight. Were you super excited about it? Was it only 10 days notice? Well, what was your thought?
To be honest, man, I had over 60 fights, professional fights going in there. God, here's the advantage that I had is that, Jason Farron says he had 32 bare knuckle challenge matches.
Right.
I had over 32 amateur boxing fights.
Official.
I had 20. I had 20 amateur kickboxing fights. I was 20. I was 22 and I was 22 and 1. No, 22 and 2 when I stepped in there as a professional kickboxer. I was 7-0 as a professional boxer. So it's hundreds of wrestling matches and probably 1,000, ton of karate boxing, 1,000. So I had a lot of experience. So I'm thinking, man, I remember everyone going, talking about like, I can't wait to get in there to prove my skills and do this and do that. And I'm like, they interview me and I said, am I the only one who is scared here? Because I haven't slept good since I agreed to do this. You know?
For sure.
And I was trying to figure out where all this bravado came from because, man, some of these guys didn't have a lot of fights, and here I am, with over 60 professional fights going, man, what the hell did I get myself into, right?
Yep.
And so with Jason, I didn't have, I wasn't terribly worried because, he was a jiu-jitsu guy and people were telling me, oh, yeah, he's really good. He gets you down and you're in trouble. But I'm thinking, he's not going to take me down.
Right.
He's not going to be able to get me down.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, you better have something else in the tank because, back then, man, none of the jiu-jitsu guys could wrestle. I mean, hell, I could give them and they couldn't take me down.
Right.
Now you got guys, all the jiu-jitsu guys know how to wrestle and they're real good at it.
A lot of them, yeah.
But back then they weren't. And so I wasn't really worried about it. I say, let me put it this way. I was worried, as anybody would be about like losing and stuff like that. But I was very confident going into the fight because I felt like I had, obviously a superior skill set than he did.
Right. Plus 32, winner of 32 bare knuckles street fights or underground fights usually meant the guy had been in 4 street fights.
Yeah, and most of those were in kindergarten.
Right,
so,
yeah.
So I mean, I wasn't impressed by that kind of stuff.
No.
And they had a lot. And Jason, I'll be honest, I think Jason was suffering from some kind of mental illness. you know, near the end of his life, and because he would have very strange. I would get very strange, you know, Facebook messages from him, you know, like all over the place, like, "Hey man, sorry about talking shit about you," like this. I'd be like, "Yeah, no problem," and then literally he'd go, you know, he would like, you know, "You're a bitch, I'm calling you out." I'm like, "Dude, you're like my bipolar girlfriend," you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I kind of felt sorry for him at the, you know, when I heard that he passed away, you know, I kind of figured what happened. So.
It's sad. He was a good kid back in the day, though. Probably, I guess he had a few MMA fights and seemed like a strong guy with some skills. I think he got some more skills even after he fought you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, to be honest, I don't know. You know what was going on in his life. You know, to be honest. I mean,
understood. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. So in the early days after your win, a lot of us remember the Lions Den, and you did mention Vernon Tiger White, you know, definitely. But a lot of guys, including me, remember it was Ken Shamrock. And at first, as Frank admitted, I had Frank on my show a couple times, and he said in the early days he was carrying the spit bucket, going out and scouting out who the other fighters were for Ken. But nevertheless, you had Frank there, you had yourself, you had Jerry Bolander and Trey Teligman. These are guys that no one has seen for many, many years. Were either of those guys friends of yours, and what do you remember best about those guys?
Listen, the one thing about the Lions Den guys, the one, I mean, we had a falling out. I had a falling out with Jason, you know, and I don't talk to him, but you know, but everybody else are like, I mean, also like brothers. You know what I mean? I mean, they really are. You know, I don't have to call them every day or nothing, but you know, every now and then I'll pick up the phone, or they'll pick up the phone, and we'll connect again. And it's like we were just like, you know, we were just like you would if you were your brother, you know. You have to talk to them every day, but then boom, you're back into it, you know. They were good guys. I mean, you know, I have a lot of respect for them and a lot of love for them. You know, some of my favorite times were, you know, the training with the guys, because, you know, the problem that I had with a lot of the stuff I was doing is that I never could find guys who were quite as intense as I was about winning, you know? And, you know, I mean, let's put it this way. I can't even let a 3-year-old beat me in tic-tac-toe, you know what I mean? I mean, I was probably on a couch explaining that to a psychiatrist, but the fact of the matter is that, you know, that kind of drive and intensity, you know, made up for, you know, what I didn't, you know, I wasn't the best athlete out there, but I beat a lot of better athletes because I just willed to win more. And that was the one thing the Lions Den guys had, was these guys had the will to win, because a lot of them didn't have a huge amount of skills when they went in there. A lot of them just had a little bit of wrestling, you know, and then learned everything. I mean, most like Jerry just wrestled. I mean, he took his first pro fight 1 year into his training, and he was a very good wrestler, but just a wrestler. And I think that Pete Williams wasn't even as good a wrestler as Jerry. Right. You know what I mean? He had his first fight about a year, not quite 2 years into his training. Man, you know, and fought at a world class level. Yeah, and so it was just sheer, you know. And I'll tell you, Ken did an amazing job of getting these guys, you know, believing in themselves and believing they can win, because, you know, I mean, you know, the Jedi mind tricks didn't work on me. I'd been in the business for a long time. You know, I turned pro at 20. You know, so I'm like 26, 27 when I'm stepping into the UFC, right? You know, so yeah, I was 26. So it was like, you know, I'd already been a pro for 6 years, you know, and had a ton of fights. And in fact, you couldn't even do the amount of fights I did nowadays because of the internet. Back then, they didn't have the internet, so I just go to another, you know, state, and I used to fight under my middle name in Mississippi, and I'd fight under my initials in Louisiana, and I'd fight under my name in Texas, and then in Oklahoma they didn't have a boxing community.
Interesting.
So, I had a ton of fights in 6 years, and so I didn't necessarily need the pump up kind of thing, you know, right? As much as I needed. I mean, the real reason I went out to deal with Ken in the first place was, I knew Ken was a straight shooter, and I needed to make sure I wasn't going to get killed out there. Yeah. You know, because, you know, everyone kept saying it's like a street fight. I'm like, no, it's not like a street fight. It's the most retarded thing. People say that. Yeah. Because I've never had a street fight in a 30 by 30 cage you know, with another guy who actually knew how to fight.
Right.
You know, and I've never had a street fight that you could tap out if you wanted to.
Right.
Right. So it's not a street fight. No. You know, it's not exactly at that time. It wasn't really a sport either. It was more of a spectacle.
Yeah.
But it was not. You know, it was a. You know, it was a. I don't even know really how to describe it outside of the fact that you know, you're going out there, and it was a, you know, it was a completely different experience, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, a street fight consisted of a drunk guy who usually made fun of my hair because it was long, and long hair wasn't super popular back then.
Right.
You know, and I'd punch him in the face and knock him out. That would be the extent of a street fight for me.
Yeah.
You know, this was not a street fight.
Right.
This was going against a guy with good skills, and you know, it was like I said, it was quite an adventure. You know, I mean, it really was.
Absolutely. A lot of amazing times, amazing fights then, and I was watching all of them. Speaking about street fighters, any interesting perspective on the man who was representing street fighting, though, in the sport, David Tank Abbott?
Well, okay, so here the thing is that, you know, that was just his shtick. I mean, hell, his father was a wrestling coach. He had an extensive wrestling background, you know.
He was
I mean,
a college
it's not
graduate.
like he didn't have skills.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I mean, you know, that's kind of a farce on his end. But yeah, he used to beat people up in the street. You know, he was, the Huntington Beach, you know, tough guy. And listen, man, you like or dislike Tank, man. Whatever your opinion is, he was willing to step up, and he was willing to throw down. Yeah. You know, and. So he kind of had respect for that, you know, even though, you know, we didn't exactly see shit eye to eye. You know, I respect the fact he was a tough guy.
Yeah, absolutely. You beat a man who had been his student, Tito Ortiz, and I think after you beat him, I don't think I think Frank may have beat him after you beat him, but then I think that was it, and he went on a tear for his next 8 or 10 fights, and so you really beat a young, very strong Tito Ortiz. I think possibly he had left Tank. I remember when he was first out there, he was training with Tank, and then he left Tank and went somewhere else, and in fact, I know where he went. He went to train with my teacher, Fabiano Ija, and they were out there in Orange County, and you had Rico Rodriguez, Tito, Rampage Jackson, Fabiano Ija, but I remember when they asked
they also had Chuck Liddell too.
I think, yeah, Chuck would go through there a lot too, once in a while, Randy even as well, yeah. But I remember in an interview they asked Tito what he had learned from Tank, and he said pretty much just to try to beat the fuck out of people, you know, is what it was. But when you fought Tito Ortiz, that was an interesting matchup there, and that was one of the more skillful guys and a tough guy as well. What was your thought going into that Tito Ortiz fight? And I remember, I think it was stopped temporarily and then restarted after a headbutt, and then you got the submission. Take us through what your thought going into that fight was, and then during that fight.
You know, I mean, I broke my hand on Lininger's head, you know, and I was, you know, contemplating pulling out because it literally had to cut the glove off my hand.
And that was that first fight. You're right. It was 2 fights in a night. This was the second fight in the same night. You had beat judoka Christoph Leininger, and you broke your hand. Okay, so continue on. Go ahead.
Yeah. So and to be honest, man, everybody was. You see the disappointment in everybody's eyes, and it was an interesting time because it was like one of the last times that everybody from the entire team came together to help me get ready for this. For the tournament, right? And so, you know, it was a kind of a special time for me. You know, I mean, it meant a lot to me. So, you know, and I saw Tito fight, and you know, and I'll be honest, I thought I could beat him. You know, I was not horribly worried about what I was facing against. You know, but you know, to be honest, you know, Tank was surrounded by a bunch of clowns. You know what I mean? And when I saw Tito and act like that, I figured Tito was a clown too. You know what I mean? But he was, he had some really good skills, but Tito's also a naturally good fighter. I mean, if Tito never actually had any training, he still would be, you know, a pretty rough character. You know, guys like that are just naturally good fighters. You know what I mean? Even skilled or not. And Tito's kind of got that, and so, you know, and I found out pretty soon that, you know, I made a mistake against him. When you know, because he was a little bit better than I thought, but even in the fight I lost, I never really, Tito never really ever hurt me with a shot or anything. So I wasn't really worried about, getting, knocked out or anything, you know what I mean? So, even both fights, it wasn't like I was nervous about any of that stuff. And so, and that kind of breeds some confidence, but Tito, like I said, not taking away from him, man. I mean, let's face it, he's one of the most dominating light heavyweights in the history of the game, and kind of found his little niche, and he did real well.
Absolutely. In that first fight, if you can remind me, I think it was stopped for some reason and restarted.
Yeah,
what happened?
Cut. Yeah, it was cut, and so they didn't really have a rule for cuts, right? And so they were like, they checked the cut, and the doc said, no, it's all right. And they didn't really have a format to, what do you do? So we just started back up, which actually was, to be honest, it was a blessing for me because, I was down. I mean, it wasn't like I would be there the whole time or anything. I didn't feel like even the shot that cut me, it didn't even hurt. I mean, it just was, his shin bone on my head, right? And I wasn't horribly worried about that, but it was advantageous to me because I got to stand back up and I threw a kind of a lunging right hand that didn't connect with him hard, but I saw his eyes and I knew he was going to shoot. I just knew it. I was like, he didn't want to hit, so I knew he was going to shoot, and he did. And I caught him with the choke.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a guillotine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you take to the submissions pretty smoothly and easily? It sure looked like you did, but you had this long, several years stand-up record. But, actually, you did mention you did wrestle in high school, so it sounds like the submissions came pretty easily to you that you learned from Ken, huh?
Yeah, I mean, what Ken really showed me mostly was leg locks. Like I said, I had a judo background. I mean, arm barring and choking people and stuff like that. I already had pretty extensive knowledge in those kinds of submissions. I mean, really, it was more on, how to get submissions on without having a gi and leg locks, which were completely foreign to me.
Right.
That was some of the good, some of the good instruction. I mean, really, what Ken brought to the table again was, Ken is a pretty good strategist, and like really his, he gets you very focused in what you're doing and imbibes you with the idea that you're going to be the champ and you're going to outwork everybody, and he does. He had an extremely tough work regimen for us. I mean, our workout ethics was bar none. I mean, nobody outworked us, and that was that's one thing Ken brought to the table, was this intensity and that level,
Right.
And
you guys were kind of like the AKA of the 90s. I kind of get the feeling in the intensity of the people there.
Yeah. I mean, back because still, it was weird, man, because everything was very tribal back then. You know what I mean? Now it's a lot less tribal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, AKA will have guys from various places come, but, back then, if you weren't part of the tribe, you didn't train. If you weren't part of the Gracie tribe, you didn't train with the Gracies.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you did, you weren't part of the Lions Den tribe, to be honest, we actually had more people come that weren't actually part of the tribe, but still, when it was still kind of a, much more tribal. That Tank had his tribe, you know what I mean? Kino had his.
Yeah. Real kind of cliquish, right? You had your clique, and then if you were not in it or you didn't know anyone in it, you weren't getting in it.
Yeah, and so basically that was it, and then, and it was made for some colorful evenings after the fights and stuff.
Yeah, I bet. Let me ask you. This is a question a lot of us guys that have been fans for years wonder. Trey Telligman, he was amazing and just a tough guy from Sweden, I think, originally. He looks like he had...
He's from Dallas, Texas.
Well, I like it. They call him the Swede, and he's from Dallas, Texas. I love it. That's awesome. But he had a missing pectoral muscle. I think it was on his right side. Half the time, guys were saying it was in some sort of a car accident when it was torn off. Yeah. The other half say he was born with it. Which was it? Do you know?
He had a car wreck.
It was, okay. So that
Trey's one of my best friends. I mean, he is an absolute amazing human being. on top of being one of the best friends. And yeah, he was an amazing fighter too.
He really.
Yeah, he listen. He overcame a lot. What people don't realize is that he literally, if he got hit hard enough in the chest right there, that could have killed him. The way it was, the bones and everything were. I mean, people don't. I mean, the fact that he got passed by the boxing commissions, and a lot of our fights, we didn't have boxing commissions because he may or may not have been allowed to fight if they actually took a closer examination. But people don't realize, man, he had a lot more balls than brains sometimes, because he'd go out there and fight. And, if he took a hard shot there, it could have killed him.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right. That's a brave dude. I mean, just a big, strong, tenacious guy. But you're right. I didn't think about that. And your knowledge of medicine now, having gotten your degree, definitely tells you that. So, I mean, thank God he wasn't hurt badly, and just, an amazingly tough guy. Let me ask you, we got about six minutes left, and there's so many things I want to ask you about. But I remember you ended up being, and I don't know how I learned about this, somehow you were on the, and I shouldn't make it seem like it's a shock, you're always a good-looking guy, you were on America's Sexiest Bachelor. There's some funny stories.
America's Sexiest Bachelor,
yeah, tell us, how the heck did that happen? I was excited. It's like, yeah, no holds barred guys on TV. Come on. As my friends were watching, saying, we got to cheer. Guy has to win the Sexiest Bachelor. How did that happen? There's a funny story behind it, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so me and some of my old buddies, we had some fairly elaborate consequences when we bet, right? We rarely bet money, but there's a male review place in Dallas called Le Bear, and so I won this one bet, and I made these two other guys that lost the bet go dance on their amateur night, right? and stupid things like made it, in the middle of a golf tournament, some of the guys had to jump into the pond,
right?
And idiot stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
you're young then. Yeah.
So I lost a bet, and so I had to I had to put my name in the hat for this well, it was America's Sexiest Bachelor, but it was for the Texas contest, and so I didn't think I'd win it, but I ended up winning it. So I'm like Mr. Texas, so to speak, and I'm like laughing, and listen, it was flattering that people actually thought me, that was a handsome guy and stuff like that. But it was just like so surreal. I'm like cracking up. I'm like, this can't be happening, you know what I mean? And so I even tried to get out of it, because I was like, hey man, I'll literally be coming back from Japan.
Yeah.
Landing in Dallas, the very next day I'm going to get on a plane and come out to Vegas for this thing. I said, the problem is I fight professionally for a living. My face may not look, presentable for television, you never know. And actually, I actually got headbutted
by Vandalay,
and had stitches. Yeah, I had stitches and a slight black eye. And so I told them, I said, yeah, this is what happened. They're like, nah, don't worry about it. We're going to do it. So I was probably the only beauty pageant contestant who had a black eye and stitches.
I love it. I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking, all these other guys there are probably models, possibly for a living, and then Guy is a fighter. Hopefully no one pisses him off. No one came close to pissing you off in the contest there of the other competitors, did they? I hope not.
No. They're all, to be honest, they're all really pretty good guys, to be honest.
That's cool.
When I first saw him walk, I saw him walk in, and I had to stay. I was like, oh man, dude, I'm dealing with a bunch of narcissistic pricks. But no, they actually, they were actually by and large, pretty. A lot of them were kind of like me. They were kind of like, I'm not sure why I'm here,
right.
And I'm not sure exactly how I ended up here. I was like, I still think how the hell did I win this thing to become Mr. Texas? And then I'm like, it was just like, it was kind of like surreal. I mean, it was complimentary to me and everything, but it just kind of, I don't know, it just was like weird.
Yeah. The long hair was gone at that point, or did you still have it?
No, it was gone by then.
Gotcha. When Vanderlei headbutted
if I had
you,
long hair, I would have won. So.
Yeah, I bet. I think you're right. Absolutely. I think you did well, man. You look great, and it was great representing no holds barred fighting back then. When you fought Vanderlei, that headbutt was illegal. That was unfortunate, because that fight was looking good. We don't have too much time left, but I think that fight was back and forth, and I think that fight, that headbutt was illegal and made a difference in how the fight went down with you not winning it. Did the referee see it? Did anyone care? It was an illegal technique.
It's Japan. And it's like this. Vanderlei's a very intense guy. It's not like I don't think he, that this wouldn't occur.
Right.
And so it's like in Japan, man. They're very creative in their decisions, right?
Yep.
And if you're going to participate and this, then you take responsibility. And I'm fighting a guy who, is super intense and he's a hell of a fighter, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like I said, I knew what to expect, So yeah, I mean, there's, it was kind of a shitty thing to happen, but it's not like, it's not like I cry about it because it's the business.
Yeah.
And I know the business, right? It's not like I was surprised by this or anything like that. It's not, it happens,
Yeah.
It's, intentionally and unintentionally. I mean, it just does, stuff happens.
Absolutely. And it was a great fight, and you were a great fighter. You also became president of HDNet. That was Mark Cuban's channel, which was then named Access TV years later. And then you went back to school and got your degree, henceforth, Dr. Guy Metzger. Guy, in the last 3 minutes we have you, if there's anything you want to shout out about some of the research that you're doing nowadays and going back to school, or your thoughts about MMA, anything at all, I'm happy to have you shout out where people can follow you, what you're doing, and maybe a final thought about MMA and where we go from here.
All right. Well, that's a lot for 3 minutes, especially with the way I talk.
Yeah,
but
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
But I will tell people, the one thing I tell people all the time is like, you can't let other people, decide for you, what you can be, what you can do, and what you can have. I went back to school, became a doctor. I was the president of a television company. I mean, there's not many guys that was a professional fighter, then a president of a television company, and then earned his doctor metabolic function. So the thing is I always tell people is like, don't let other people define who you want to be. You got to have new changes in life, and it's part of the adventure of my life. And on the MMA side of stuff, I would love to see the change. I'd like to see is I'd like to see more guys. The one advantage of no hold barred, and I don't glorify it as if it was any better. It was just different. But the difference was you had to finish your opponent. You had to finish them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so, today too many guys go for the decision, and I think that robs the fan. And you could tell. You watch the fights, and you know that this guy is not trying to finish the other guy. He's just trying to outpoint him. And I get it. You want to win and all that other stuff, but I also am a big fan of fighting in the spirit of the game as much as fighting by the rules. And and one thing I'd like to see change is I would love to see more, these guys, fighting for the knockout, fighting for the submission, fighting for that versus just trying to win each round. That would be my only complaint. Other than that, with the way the rules are set up, the way the things, it creates an opportunity for a sport to grow. Really, when I started, it wasn't a sport; it was a spectacle. Now it's a sport.
Yep.
I got an opportunity to fight, and I had the opportunity to fight in both arenas. I fought in the no holds barred and mixed martial arts. And I prefer to be a sportsman than a thug. So I welcome the rules. I think it's great. It gives the guys an opportunity. The opportunities these guys have today is awesome, and I'm excited for them. Because they can actually make some careers out of this. Where before, you really couldn't. If I didn't have the opportunity to go to Japan, it would have been a career for me.
Yep.
And so I was blessed like that. And I have to thank the fans. The fans have always been. Very, very gracious to me, and very, very, very nice, very complimentary by and large. They say that every person has 15 minutes worth of fame, but apparently I've stretched my 15 minutes out to about 15 years thanks to the fans. They've always been really good. And so, without the fans, we wouldn't have jobs. Of course, I could do without some of the fans, but by and large, most of the fans are pretty good guys and gals. And again, they support the sport, and without that support, we wouldn't we wouldn't be here today.
Absolutely, man. Well, you were a big part of those early days and introducing people to what a mixed martial artist looked like. You were one of the early guys that did have all that experience and did have that composure and did have the multifaceted attack. Also, with you being HDNet president, you're a well-spoken guy. You've always promoted the sport, and I think we wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for people like yourself, and more specifically yourself. You're a big influencer and a pioneer in the sport of MMA, and I'm honored to have had you on the show, man. I cheered for you. I watched the Lion's Den, super impressed, and to talk to you is absolutely a thrill. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, Dr. Guy Mesker, to join us here in the MMA Power Hour.
Hi, buddy. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Thanks so much. My pleasure. You have a great night, Guy. Take care. Be well.
You too, brother.
Thanks. Later. Bye-bye. And that was Guy Mesker, one of the OGs of the sport, man. Dr. Adam Rorda, I know we got to wrap it up here, but honor to have him on. Alan Jouban, always an honor to have him on. We've got some great stuff coming up next week, but I think...
Before you go into that real quick, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who tuned in and is still here with us, listening through Guy Mesker, an amazing legend of the sport in so many different ways. Like Colin said, a huge advocate and really pushing the sport into the public's eye in a way that a lot of people just really couldn't have even imagined. If it wasn't for him, we may not be where we are today with the sport. So just very thankful for Guy coming on, everybody tuning in. Make sure to give us a like, comment, and share. I started a watch party on my own page for a couple of past episodes. Feel free to swing on by there, check that out. Also want to say thank you to Combat Press. Go to combatpress.com, where every fight has a story. They have all of the news that you're looking for with combat sports, kickboxing, MMA, boxing. It's all there, no fluff, great stuff. A few opinion pieces, but they're actually very intentionally light there. I go there for all the updates that I need. Also, go on over to digisouth.co if you're looking for digital or if you're looking for social media marketing. We can help you out, and I say we because I loved their service so much that I joined the team and decided I would help them out, since that's kind of what we do here at MMA Power Hour, and they've helped us out tremendously. So definitely go on over to digisouth.co. I believe we're setting up an Instagram account for that here in the near future. But in the meantime, go ahead and like us across the board on social media. It's all there. CrossTrainMMAfighter.com. Get yourself a nice t-shirt. Let people know that you're a fighter or at least a fan of the sport just by sporting this shirt.
Yes, thank you. Represent no shirt in this industry. Represents better that you're a fan or a weekend warrior. You train your jits, you train your striking, then cross-trained MMA fighter. Top quality, not just because it's my company, but it looks great, it feels great. I'm high-end as far as my quality, low end as far as price, so check it out. You won't be disappointed. Next week we actually are talking to a few different people. Nothing nailed down. I'll announce during social media. I'll try to put out the event banner earlier than normal. So that's about it. Dr. Adam Rorda, if you don't have anything else, then I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks again so much to, in order of appearance, Alan Rorda, Dr. Adam Rorda, Alan Jouban, Guy Mesker. Big thanks and respect to all three of you gentlemen. For Dr. Adam Rorda, I want to let you know, look out for yourself. Be kind, gentle to yourself. Look out for your neighbors. Give someone a call. Let them know you got their back. Even if you haven't talked to them for a while, it could mean the difference between life and death. It's still somewhat of a cold winter. It's a lonely world out there, and letting someone know that you care could be huge. So please do that. Take good care of your kids, your parents. Spread the love of your coworkers. Take care of your pets. If you have the money and you have it in your heart to get a pet or give to ASPCA or a charity like that, please do that. Pets can use your help. God bless them, and you know, they are truly God's creatures, the animals out there. So big love to all pet caregivers, and thank you so much once again. I hate to go, but for Dr. Adam Rorda and the MMA Power Hour, this is Colin Crandall, and I am tapping out.
A sport that bridges generations. Live everywhere. Fight gives you instant access to live pay-per-view and free combat sports programs. Check out our combat sports schedule at fight.tv. Fight. Start watching.
Are you looking for a good fight? Check out the Fight pay-per-view schedule. Watch on the biggest screen in the house. What's the fight tonight? MMA, boxing, pro wrestling, live on pay-per-view. Just tap play and pick a screen to watch on. Playback shifts instantly to the screen of your choice. No hardware, no hassle. Download the Fight app and start watching today.
Well, welcome one, welcome all to V3 Fights.
This is exciting. The house is packed.
Well, here we go.
Knockout!
Oh! Pretty electric, man. People are on their feet.
This is your main event. Wow. Let me hear you make some noise.
This is the fight.
Here we go.
Nice takedown. Oh, wow.
Now he's in a full mount. He's raining down elbows. Let's see if they touch gloves. Look at that. Just a nice takedown.
Trying to finish here. Right over.
Ladies and gentlemen, declaring your winner. It's staying undefeated.
Everyone here just got to witness V3 history.
I'm booking a private jet to Tuscan. You thought of me? Huh? I really need to get there fast. Who the fuck you think you're talking to? Shut up, little boy. I'm talking to Fredo. Un poco di rispetto. Fredo. Sorry, Al. There was someone disturbing us. So I was telling you about Airwolf Jet Services. They're friends of ours. The best. Amazing service. You should check them out now. www.airwolfjetservices.com